You can hide it.
Julia, did you
Welcome everyone to Ordinary Council Meeting 4541 of Huddersfield Council, the first ordinary meeting of 2025. Could I ask you all to please be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge and show my respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Reverend Michael Armstrong will deliver the prayer.
Let me pray. Most gracious God, in your providence, you gave this land to the Wallamata people. As we continue to learn to live together on this land, we pray for hearts that seek to be reconciled and united as one. We pray on this night for peace among the nations, including our own. We pray for our community, giving thanks for our many blessings, and ask you to encourage us to live in a spirit of unity, compassion, generosity, and concern for one another. We give thanks this night for the service of Mitchell, our outgoing General Manager. We give thanks for his service to this community and his leadership offered during his tenure. We pray for him and his family as they prepare for the next part of their journey. Bless them, Lord, with all that is good and wondrous. Pray for all our council staff, especially those who will now be a part of this new phase of their working life. We pray for all who will seek to engage the new General Manager. We pray for our council and our councillors, pray particularly for our Mayor, Zach, for councillors Carla, Carol, Ross, Mark, Julia and Tatiana. We pray for your grace that they may diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, discharge the duties entrusted to them. We pray upon them a spirit of wisdom, compassion and generosity. We pray for willingness to work together for the common good of this municipality. We lift all this up to the one who came among us, revealing how it is to live well, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Michael. Please be seated. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending this council meeting might have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party, members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we have an apology, a late apology from Councillor Carla Kassab. She's had a family incident, medical emergency, so she won't be attending Council's meeting tonight. There are no other apologies. Are there any declarations of interest? If not, we'll move on to the first item of business, the confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4540, held 16 December 2024. Moved. Councillor Prieston, seconded. Councillor Sleeman, Tanous Sleeman, sorry. Any discussion? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We have a couple of mayoral minutes this evening, councillors, so with your indulgence, I'll move to item 2.1, a mayoral minute for former Mayoress Lorna Merrington. I'll read the report. It's with great sadness that we recognise the passing of long-time resident and community advocate Lorna Merrington. Born on 24th of July 1922 in Drummoyne, Lorna was the beloved and devoted wife of John Merrington for more than 70 years. She's a cherished mother-in-law of Peter and Julie, Jennifer and Don and Wendy. She also was a treasured grandmother to 6 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren. During the war, Lorna signed up as a voluntary aid detachment to the voluntary aid detachment and was the assistant commandant for the detachment. She met her husband in 1946 through some friends, and they married in 1948 due to a shortage of building material. Apparently. In writing some of her life story, Laura penned the following about John. And so I met John. We had only gone out together 3 times, and we knew that was it. John and I had a very happy marriage for more than 58 years, interesting all the time. John's father, Arthur, bought land in Woolwich in 1946, which he subdivided into 16 lots and a road, which is now Mayfield Avenue, which he gave to council. He gifted one block to Lorna and John, and they moved into their new house in 1950. John was elected to council in 1962 and served as an alderman until 1983. He was also a mayor from 1965 to 1967 and also served as deputy mayor for some of his time on council. Lorna took her role as Lady Mayoress seriously and was just as committed to serving the community as her husband. They both volunteered with many community groups, including the Scouts, Girl Guides, Music Club and the Historical Society, as well as the Hunters Hill Museum and the Bridge Club and the Bowling Club. She also volunteered at Woolwich Primary School and Hunters Hill High School. In 1967, Meals on Wheels started its first run, delivering 15 meals at 30 cents per meal. Lorna, then the Mayoress of Hunters Hill, called a local meeting of 100 women to offer their help. The meals were supplied to Mount Street Hospital, Royal Road Homes and the Gladesville Hospital. People like Lorna and their contribution to this cause have made Meals on Wheels a successful community outreach program that it is today. Lorna was passionate about researching her family history, and even more than that, she captured a lot of our area's local history by recording oral memoirs from older residents in the area. She also published a small history of Clark's Point. Lorna was a devoted woman of faith, and as a child spent every Saturday at church and at Sunday school, and continued the tradition as she grew older. Lorna passed away peacefully on the 23rd of January 2025. Family, friends and colleagues paid their respects to Lorna at a celebration of her life held at All Saints Parish in Hunters Hill on Wednesday the 12th of February 2025. Lorna's community spirit and altruistic service will forever remain a legacy in Hunters Hill. Councillors, are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I knew Lorna and John. And as you quite rightly pointed out in your mayoral minute, Lorna was a stalwart of our community. She was involved in everything from the long time that they were here, bringing their family up, and provided great support to a whole range of organisations in Hunters Hill. And I think the issue around Meals on Wheels is a fine example of her involvement, commitment and leadership within our community. The Merringtons are still present in our community, and I think the honour that was given to the Merringtons, particularly John, also applies to Lorna in the naming of the street down at Clark's Point. So it's been a long association, a very proud association Lorna had with our community, a very deep involvement with our community, and it's another sad loss in our community that she has passed.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the mayoral minute. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll move to item 2.2, which is another mayoral minute to recognise all the residents that were also recognised in the Australia Day Honours List and Council's local Australia Day Awards. And I'll again read the report. On the 26th of January 2025, the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, Her Excellency the Honourable Sam Moyston, announced 732 awards in the Australia Day Honours List. Congratulations should be passed to Rombomulus Kybus and Martisha Kybus from Huntley's Cove, who were among those on the 2024 list. They were both awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia for service to the Australian Lithuanian community. Romulus has spent his time as the president of the Sydney Lithuanian Club, tongue twister, since 2015, and his wife was a director since 2016. They also preside over the Lithuanian Community Publishing Society, which produces a weekly newspaper. Romulus has also been the Lithuanian community representative to the Department of Home Affairs since 2015. This is a great achievement, and I would like to congratulate both of Romulus and Martisia for their passion, input and service to the community. Biographical notes are found on the link inside the report. On Australia Day, Council also recognised the outstanding achievements of 4 local residents and groups through the 2025 Hunters Hill Citizen of the Year Awards. All award recipients were nominated by the community. Hunters Hill Citizen of the Year this year was Felicity McCaffrey. Felicity has supported various local organisations, Indigenous programs and sustainable projects for L'Arche, New South Wales, Giant Steps and the Greenhouse Initiative, Rotary Club of Hunters Hill, the Spring Garden Competition and the Happy Hens Community Garden. As Treasurer and now Vice President of the Hunters Hill Historical Society, Felicity also dedicates her time to preserving our local oral history. The Hunters Hill Young Citizen of the Year was Annabelle Ireland. In addition to representing her school in the state and national sports, Annabelle organised a successfully ran Hunters Hill's first ever fun run to raise money for the Sydney Children's Hospital Foundation. The event brought together 85 participants who ran 3 kilometres and raised over $3,200 for the hospital. The Hunters Hill Outstanding Sport Achievement of the Year award went to Stella Hurley. Stella is a homegrown talent whose sailing career has included competing at a 29ers World Championship, 2 RS Fever World Championships, junior level of the America's Cup, Sail GP, as well as other highly ranked European regattas such as Kiel Week. Stella has been recognised as a Sportsperson of the Year by her school for 6 consecutive years. New South Wales and ACT Female Optimist Champion, National Optimist Green Fleet Champion and Female Oceanic Optimist Champion. The Environmental Excellence Award went to Chris Mutton this year. In addition to his volunteering for the Happy Hens, Chris has been a part of Council's Bush Care Group for over 20 years, helping to regenerate bushland in parks such as Gladesville Reserve and Betts Park. He regularly participates in clean-up events like National Tree Day and Clean Up Australia Day, which is coming up. And he often takes the initiative to clean up around the municipality. The Community Excellence Awards this year went to 3 recipients, the first of which was Charles Amos. As a former president and long-time member of the Hunters Hill Rotary Club, Charles worked on numerous community events and projects, including the revitalisation of the Hunters Hill Spring Garden Competition. He has raised funds for initiatives such as Fig Tree Park and Special Education School Giant Step Sydney. Additionally, Charles co-founded Rotary Community Tai Chi, which has been running for over 10 years and raised over $50,000 for local youth programs. The other 2 recipients of the Community Excellence Awards were Tanya and Tony Accompanying. Tanya and Tony have organised a holiday soccer camp for local children, teaching not only soccer skills but also values like healthy eating and respect. Tony leads sports programs at Brony Park Public School and takes time to pick up litter on his way to school each morning. Tanya is dedicated to running the school's canteen, ensuring that students have access to nutritious meals, and also volunteers at the P&C. We congratulate all the Australia Day Award recipients and thank them for their incredible contributions to our community in Hunters Hill. Councillors, is there anyone who wishes to speak to the Mayoral Minute? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now move to item 4.1, Council's Journey to a Food Organics Service. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Is there any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I thank the staff for what is a very thorough process they've been gone through and the negotiations that have been going on with other councils, Zoning Code. This again is a classic example of cost shifting. The government is moving at an incredible pace to require councils to adopt this program. And as always, with what the state government does when it passes responsibilities on the local government, there's no funds available for that, in addition to what the waste management levies would be. So this is going to hit our residents with additional costs to provide this service. And council fortunately has a relationship with Lane Cove, who are also working on a similar issue. So I think what we're looking at here is an agreement to move to food only. And I support that. And I believe that hopefully when it all gets in place, that there's a better outcome in terms of waste management, sustainability. But I do note the time frame is going to put a lot of pressure on council and also our community in getting it up and running and making it work effectively.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion? Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too wanted to commend the staff for their work on this, particularly Sam, for all her due diligence. I note that, kind of to echo Councillor Williams' comments, it is important to consider the kind of impending closure of the landfill sites, and that's of grave concern to the Greater Sydney area and also to councils who operate within it. So actually, while I support the motion as it stands, I would like to foreshadow a motion, if this one fails on the floor, to add an additional recommendation into the report, which would implore council to write to the Premier regarding the closure of the 2 landfill sites, and to implore the state government to implement certain measures around protecting local council, local government's ability to make sure that they can mitigate this as much as possible. And that will be it. Can I do that now?
That's foreshadowed. Councillor Williams, are you happy to include a writing to the Premier about the landfill issue?
Most certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, so if you're comfortable, councillor, your seconder, the mover's comfortable, we can add a point. Sorry, 4.
4, yeah.
Essentially that the council writes to the Premier, and I'd say the Environment Minister as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
Outlining its concerns regarding the closure of
Lucas Heights
and Woodlawn.
Yeah. Without a plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with that, councillors?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That now becomes the motion. Any other speakers for the motion? Against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, just checking, we do have a number of speakers to item 4.6. Are we comfortable to move that up, if possible, and then if we get through 4.6 and 4.2, I think that's all our speakers covered before we get into the rest of the business of the agenda. So would anyone raise a motion to move item 4.6 forward? Move Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Tanous-Sleeman. Any dissent? All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So we'll move to item 4.6. We have 3 speakers to this item, the first being Reverend Michael Armstrong. I will note item 4.6 for those in the gallery and the multitudes listening online is the draft new significant tree register listings.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for your willingness to hear my submission regarding 2 items proposed to be listed on the significant tree register: the camphor laurel trees on Fig Tree Road and the spotted gums on St Mark's Church property in Hunters Hill. I've received copies of my written submission, including resolutions of my parish council, and a copy of a petition from our parish objecting to these trees being included. The spotted gums listing already has significant protection as a result of the heritage status of St Mark's Church. Already, as per Council's heritage webpage, we are required, should we wish to prune or remove a tree on our heritage properties, to submit a DA to Council, but in fact not to Council. We have to go through the DA planning portal for the state. The process is complex and costly, and we've been very thankful for the staff in the past who've helped us try and navigate through that complex system. We are a not-for-profit. In the last few years, our average cost of maintaining our trees is $15,000 per annum. Money we'd rather spend on our community rather than maintaining trees. We've had to do with the process of trying to have significant dangerous tree removed, costly in terms of not only time and money, but the significant stress added to our congregation, many of which were frightened to actually enter through the front of our building. We do not believe that adding additional trees provides them any greater protection that they already have. We also believe that the criteria that needs to be met for significant trees to be registered have not been met. Both sets of trees, the camphor laurel and the spotted gum, are given historic and visual aesthetic as the 2 reasons as to why they should be included. Now, we acknowledge while visual aesthetic is really in the eye of the beholder, but we wish to understand that trees which overtower your buildings are seen differently by those who live under them and have to deal with them than those who watch from across the street or any other place, especially those trees which drop branches. As we look at the camphor laurel trees, we also see these trees as a pest species. I know they're over 10 metres and therefore considered differently by council, but these trees put out thousands of seedlings into our gardens, which we have to then pull out, never mind neighbouring bushland. While some may see these as aesthetically pleasing, we don't share that view. In terms of historical, we note that within the tree profile report, there is little historical evidence. Rather, there is conjecture. It states the camphor laurel trees were likely planted as part of the sesquicentenary celebrations of 1938, but there is little evidence that this is actually the case. In fact, the final line in the report suggests that based on the size of the specimens and the aerial photos from 1943, these were planted long before that, probably the turn of the 20th century. Seeking to justify the criteria of heritage for the spotted gums, we read that they are particularly popular in terms of their planting during the 19...
Sorry, Reverend Michael, move an extension of time. Move Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Priest. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Thank you. We read that they are particularly popular during the 1940s and 50s of gardeners adding an Australian style to their garden. However, there is no evidence that this was in fact the case with these particular trees, with no clear date given as to the age of the trees. In fact, the suggestion in the report is that they probably existed some 50 years before the 1965 aerial image provided. We ask that Council therefore reject these trees within this submission, knowing that they have already protections afforded them because they're linked to our heritage properties. And secondly, that these trees do not meet the criteria of the background paper, which is set as good criteria for why they should be listed. Our parish has been prolific in our care and maintenance of trees, shrubs and grasses. In the last 5 years alone, we've planted 1,500 trees, shrubs and grasses on our properties. However, Council should note that such policies do not encourage us to want to plant more trees. In fact, the opposite. It is distressing to think of how we might maintain and manage them in the future when they all become significant trees. I thank Council for your time and will welcome any questions.
Thank you, Reverend Armstrong. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Prieston?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Reverend. What is your concern in the event that the trees are placed on the register?
From my experience of trying to actually deal with getting them pruned, there's already a DA process in place. They've got heritage around that. You then add a significant tree register on top of that. And from my experience of dealing in the past, you then actually have not clarity. Where should we go? Who does what? How is this dealt with? It already has protections. And so I don't think it needs added layers.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Tanous
Not a
Lehman.
comment, but a question.
No, that's not okay. If you can frame your comment as a question, perhaps.
Okay, I will actually. Thank you, Mayor Miles. Thank you very much, Reverend. I wanted to extend on Councillor Preston's comments in terms of potential concerns you have with it being registered. What has been your experience to date when you've had to deal with previous DAs or pruning processes?
They're complex would be the issue and costly. So for us, we have to get an arborist report, level 5. That costs us between $1,500 to $3,000, depending on the tree and its quality. It often then comes back and you have to then actually argue with the arborist as to whether it's dangerous or not. We have to prove that. We get council staff out who are very helpful, but they also work within a framework which is not helpful, I think, sometimes to them. And for the ability to have someone to make the call ultimately means it often goes around in circles. So that's my fear, is that you end up with a significant tree register and heritage, both dealing with the same group of trees. Which and how? How does that work for us? Not for profit, old people, including myself, trying to deal with this legislation. I mean, I have 3 degrees, one in applied science, park, rec and heritage, and I still have to go through that DA process and find it really hard. Never mind my parish council, it is a struggle.
Thank you. I was going to say it's one of the, I think you're a very brave person to bring it up because it's the second biggest issue that's been brought up in all my campaigning in the last 12 months. So thank you for bringing that up. And I hear and fully understand your concerns. Thank you very much.
We love
Councillor
trees. I want to be clear. We love trees. We want to see more. We want them put up in a way and allowed to be maintained in a way that we can care for them and do it well.
Councillors, any further questions? If not, thank you,
Thank you.
Reverend Armstrong. I now call Eola. Have you got Eola?
Thank you.
Sorry, I butchered a couple of names earlier, so I
It's
hope
okay.
I got yours right.
It's Yola. It's
Yola.
I with Y. Good evening, councillors and members of the community. I stand before you today to oppose the inclusion of the Eucalyptus pilularis at 17 Barron Crescent in the significant tree register. While this tree is a fine specimen, its inclusion is based on inaccurate claims of rarity, overstated ecological value, and a failure to balance the value of inclusion against the risks and practicalities of its location. The original proposal for inclusion claimed that this tree is a rare remnant of the coastal forest. However, aerial images from 1955 clearly show that the entire site was cleared of vegetation. Tree QI subsequently acknowledged that the tree is not a remnant, but argues that this does not alter its significance. I strongly disagree. If this tree is merely one of many new or regrowth specimens, then it holds no more significant or botanical importance than any other blackbutt tree in Hunters Hill or the surrounds. Next, we should review the aesthetic value. The inclusion of criteria states that a tree should be situated with very prominent location or be highly visible from most directions and be a considerable landmark. Yet this blackbutt is only fully visible to the residents of one property, 17B, Barron's Crescent. Elsewhere, the profile is largely obscured by surrounding buildings and vegetation, with only partial glimpses available from limited points along Barron's Crescent and Park Street. It is claimed that the tree significantly contributes to the streetscape, but no evidence has been provided to support this. And I challenge those making this claim to present photographic proof that this is a tree of prominent visual landmark when viewed from most directions, which I believe is part of the criteria, and therefore worthy of inclusion. Let's consider the ecological criteria. QI states this tree provides support for various fauna. However, I would argue that there are many other eucalyptus trees in the vicinity, and we have two vast bushlands areas on our doorstep, both Buffalo Creek Reserve and Boronia Park Reserve, both of which contain numerous large native eucalypts. Local bird populations are not reliant on this single tree to survey their landscape, where there are countless others that are nearby. Finally, let's try to balance the value of inclusion and the tree's location. This blackbutt stands at 25 meters high, with a trunk with a trunk of 1 meter. Circumference of 1 meter.
Sorry, could I just get it move an extension of time? Councillor Williams move, second to Councillor Preston. All those in favour? Against?
Thank you.
Carried. Please continue. Three more minutes. Well, sorry, 1 more minute.
So just with the 3 meters, and it is growing 3 meters from a dwelling in the backyard of only a 6 meter, that is only 6 meters wide, a very small area. The Eucalyptus pilularis is known to double or triple this size, meaning it could reach an unstable and dangerous size in an environment where its roots are constrained by the surrounding buildings that are already known to encroach on the tree protection zone, which has been shown in the building certificate. Despite claims to the contrary, this tree frequently drops limbs, posing a real and ongoing threat. This is a limb that dropped 2 weeks ago in the backyard of 17B. Imagine if this dropped on the 7-year-old or the 4-year-old child that was living in that backyard that there is nowhere else to go because it is so small. In conclusion, a tree must be the right criteria to justify inclusion in the significant tree register. This tree does not. It is not a rarity. It is not a visually prominent. Its ecological significance is overstated. And its placement in a cramped backyard makes it an increasing hazard to property and life. I urge the council to reject this nomination.
Thanks, Yul. Can I just get you back to, I saw you hauling that in, and I've got to say, after 12 years on council or more, that is a first for me. Yeah,
Sorry.
we'll get rid of the depot behind council after this. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Vergara.
17B? I'm 17A, the next door neighbour. Can I ask questions through you then?
Yes?
Has an application to remove the tree been made by 17B?
General Manager?
Oh, that would go through the town planning director, to
I
the
know
best of
that.
my knowledge, no.
Can I answer?
Yeah,
It's been made 3 times.
yeah, but it's not current.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Vergara, supplementary? No. Councillor Prieston, you had a question.
I was going to ask if you've raised the safety concerns with council before.
3 times.
Councillors, any further questions? If not, thank you. I'm sure we can get rid of that if you don't want to haul it home. Yep.
Workplace health and safety.
We have one more speaker to this item, Ms. Heather Armstrong. Thank you, Heather. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I move that now? Significant tree register. Just bear in mind this overall purpose, which has been set out by Tree IQ, thanks, Tatiana, which has been set out on page 62 of the council papers, that it has a crucial role in conservation, protection and recognition of trees that hold environmental, cultural, historical and aesthetic significance. Ideally, it is a historic summary of the landscape development of an area, both cultural, landscape development and ecological changes. It offers insight into the evolution of the local environment and the community's relationships with its trees. Council's officer has noted that inclusion of a tree on the register does not prevent its removal, its pruning, its management in any way. All those things can be still done regardless of its involvement or listing on the register. Let's go to some of the other issues. I've read the objections broadly for these multiple trees. The common to all tree objectors is the risk of, nearly all of them, is the risk of falling branches and the inconvenience and expense of maintaining trees. There's no doubt that tree maintenance and observation by residents is essential for safety. The same applies to building maintenance and other aspects of our lives, traffic, cars, street maintenance and so forth. Trees should not be expected to be maintenance free. Trees are one of the reasons people move here. Valuing trees is part of Hunters Hill's DNA. Its essential character, as so many of our council policies, the DCP, the LEP, prominently state that this is a valuable and essential criterion for our heritage, our identity as residents of Hunters Hill, and one of the reasons why we're here. Regarding 17 or 19 Barons Crescent, it should be noted that this tree long predates the purchase of those properties by the current residents. It's a bit like somebody moving into an inner city street where there's a noisy pub down the road and then applying to shut down the pub. They know full well that the pub is there, the residents full well know the tree is there. So moving into an area like Hunters Hill and saying, oh, it's dangerous, chop it down, is just the wrong approach. It's backwards. What we should be saying is, if you are in this area, then you're taking on the values of the area. You're taking on the requirements to observe the values of trees, the need to preserve them. It's not a question of just your individual fears, unsupported or otherwise. There are observations that can be made of trees. There are supports that can be given to trees. There are specific nutrients that can be given to a eucalyptus. I have a barrel of them at home in my place, which I use.
Sorry, Mrs. Armstrong. Moved extension of time, councillor Williams, seconded councillor Lane. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Which
You
I
have 1 more
use
minute.
for the significant gum tree in front of 17 Barons Crescent, which has been there for donkey's years. It's huge. It drops branches occasionally. I go out there and put my tree fertilisers around it, specifically for those trees. It encourages the retention of branches. There are ways and means in which you can preserve, maintain and augment the safety of trees. As I say, it's an ongoing obligation of all of us to look after our trees. Now, the other thing, of course, is that the talk about damaging health, the risk to health. But in fact, that backyard at 17, it's one of my friendly neighbours, is a long backyard of at least 20 metres where the tree is up the back. It's a hugely visual tree that sits up there as a sentinel across the whole area. It's not just visible from those particular adjacent residences. I see it over the road. People up and down the street can see it. It's a very prominent tree. The cuckoos, the Tarrabill cuckoos that come down here every October and stay till March, they are in and out of that tree all the time. The magpies are in it. They use it as a prominent viewing point. There's no other significant sentinel tree up there like that. It's a valuable tree in that area. But benefits to health need to be taken into account, not just the risks of the occasional branch drop. There is plenty of evidence that if we have trees, they increase your likelihood reduce the likelihood of a cardiovascular event or a fatal heart attack. There's been such studies done by this. I can hand you the Herald article, table it if you like, which covers this, mentions this research, where it was stated that scientists last year reviewed the health records of 104,000 Australians who had experienced cardiovascular events and fatal heart attacks over 10 years. They found that when people's health data was cross-checked against total green space and tree cover they lived among, a 10% increase in tree canopy cover was linked with reduced risks of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular mortality, and fatal or non-fatal heart attack. Not only do trees reduce air pollution, the study found, they also improve psychiatric, respiratory, and cardiovascular health, promote outdoor physical activity, and cool our cities. So if we're just talking about the needs of people, stop there. That's enough, isn't it? So good for our health to have trees, let alone the fact that this is a significant wildlife asset, as are all the trees up and down Barons Crescent, in particular the ones at the bottom of Paynes Road, where Blaxland comes down, the extension of Blaxland comes down. There's that old stand of black butts down there, where one of the neighbours sought to chop down this huge original black butt. Council said no. Somebody changed their mind and said yes. Of course, she chopped it down and then sold the place. Of course, the fear was it's going to fall in my son's bedroom. That is not the case. That tree is still, those trees are still standing. There's a stand of them down there. They're not dropping branches. So this is an overstated risk. And
Sorry, moving extension of time, councillor Williams, seconded.
I've nearly finished.
I'll give you 10 more seconds.
Okay,
Thank
right.
you.
It's an overstated risk. It doesn't take into account the full picture, and it doesn't take into account the whole purpose of our register, which is to value our trees and put them into the context of this, our precious municipality, which needs protection.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Any questions,
table that?
councillors? Councillor
that,
Preston, if you'd like to table that, yes.
Can I just?
Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Heather. You mentioned trees that might be healthy that we should protect, which obviously I agree with. You also mentioned trees that aren't dropping branches. Obviously, we've seen tonight a tree that does drop branches, and big ones at that. So how would you feel if that fell on a human the day that dropped?
Obviously, nobody wants anybody to be hurt.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, obviously. But I'm talking about the broader picture. If everybody turns up and says a tree might drop a branch on my child in a backyard, well, there goes Hunter's Hill. You know, the lot can go on that basis. We just need to be mindful of the fact that trees require maintenance, observation and care, as I say, like buildings do, like traffic conditions do, like roads do. It's not one of those things you can just set and forget. We look after our trees because we live here, we value them.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Tennis-Sleep.
You noted that having it listed on the tree register doesn't mean that it can't be pruned or removed.
Yep.
Conversely, not listing a tree does not mean it's not highly valued. To your earlier point that by not listing it doesn't mean that it devalues the tree. What's in question and what I've heard from our other residents is the process involved, that we are adding and creating another process. Put aside the safety concerns, which I've heard, and what you've said about considering the bigger picture, my concern is there is bigger safety issues, and I don't think that's been taken into account. But if you're on one side, you're comfortable to say that it doesn't devalue it, but on the other side, you're worried that it does devalue it if we do put on the register. So what is your position in terms of the fact that it won't actually devalue the significance of the tree, but it's clearly going to create a layer of paperwork and process for anyone to be able to enact anything to do with a tree that is a concern to their property.
Well, bear in mind that we are not in a heritage area like Reverend Armstrong, who is. This is a DA, yes, it has to go to council, which has been done by me as a simple proposal. And somebody turns up from TreeIQ and says, yes, you can, or no, you can't. I personally didn't find it difficult. You fill out the form, you send it in, somebody turns up, you talk to them, they say yes or no. Personally, I haven't found the process onerous at all. I had to chop down a banksia because it was leaning into my Angophora and grazing a big hole in it. So yes, he said you can chop that one down, but you can't chop that one down over there. So, which was another huge tree that was going to be massive in about 10 years' time, but I planted it. It's a Stenocarpus, and it's a lovely tree, but maybe it's going to be too big in 10 years' time. I'll deal with it then. These are ongoing, changeable issues that we have to manage as trees grow and change. So I don't know that it's an onerous process. I certainly didn't find it onerous.
Okay, on that, I would say from probably over 100 residents I've spoken to, the feedback's not been positive. It has been an onerous process, and I know in my role as a councillor, I would want to ensure that I can streamline and ensure that process is streamlined, so we're not having incidents like we have had in the past, which to me I certainly don't condone. Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Vergara.
Agree, wouldn't you, that having a significant tree register and putting trees on it is a demonstration of our commitment to the importance of trees in our area, particularly where we have, as a council, declared a climate change emergency, and the importance of tree canopy and maintaining trees is something we should visibly and expressly demonstrate to our community.
Wholeheartedly agree with that, Councillor Vergara. Yes.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Williams.
Not of Heather, but of staff.
Yes, thank you, Heather. Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, there's been reference to the fact that the tree register creates an onerous outcome for residents. I don't read that in the report. I was asking my question to the staff, or through you to the general manager. Does the process change dramatically, or does the process change as a result of it being listed for it to be pruned, trimmed, or maintained?
Through you to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for your question. The process only requires a tree permit or tree DA if listed on the significant tree register when the tree sits outside the conservation zone. So trees that sit within the conservation zone, the same process applies, whether or not the tree is on the register or not.
Through you, Mayor, I just want to add that I think it was addressed on page 61 of the report as well. And the reason why it needs a development consent is it's in our LEP, and it's a council initiative that the LEP was amended to incorporate clause 5.1 in the heritage conservation to ensure our canopy is retained, and the removal of trees in the conservation area are most important to ensure that the canopy is retained and the character of the area is maintained. Hence, the council of the day incorporated clause 5.10, which requires a consent from council.
Councillor Vergara.
No, I wasn't listening. But did you say you don't need a DA if it's not in a conservation?
That's right.
You don't need a DA.
That's right.
Why did,
We're
why
heritage.
did Heather need one?
She didn't, she put it through the portal.
Get in.
It's so dumb.
Sorry, councillor, sorry, no, we can't interact. Sorry, councillor, do you have a question, a supplementary question?
So the question is, just to clarify, you don't need
A DA,
a development application.
unless it's in a conservation area.
However, I think what we're also saying, if it's the height as well, if it exceeds 4 metres in height and the species, it does require a development consent
Whether or not it's in a conservation.
or not.
Okay, so you do need a DA if it's higher than 4 metres.
Yes.
So there's no change to the process.
No.
Councillors, we have a recommendation on page 58. Is it moved? Councillor Williams?
I'll move the recommendation.
Yes. Councillor seconded?
I'd like to move an amendment to the
Oh, okay. Is it seconded? Seconded, councillor Vergara. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard here tonight that adding these trees to the register doesn't change the process for maintenance or removal. But what it does do is underpin our values in relation to trees in Hunters Hill, in the environment which we live. The enormous value which trees give to our community can't be underestimated or understated. They are important links in our biodiversity corridors. They are important assets in terms of providing habitat. They are important assets in providing heat reduction in our communities. They also provide great pleasure and delight to residents who have the opportunity to view them. I think it's very important to acknowledge the work that the consultants have done in this in this process. They have identified the importance of these trees to the various criteria. And of course, people will have their own personal opinions and their own personal positions on these issues. But as we've heard from Mrs. Armstrong, that trees don't come without a cost. Trees require us, as do every other asset in our community, require vigilance, maintenance, and care. And we need to be very mindful of the climatic conditions in which we allow people to interact with trees. There's no use going out and howling gale and sitting under a tree. Likewise for lightning. So for me, the values which this council for eons now has had, trees are a vital part of what we do. These have been assessed by professionals which have come up to what I believe to be acceptable conclusions. And I think it's important to retain these on the register, or have these included on the register.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any speakers against? Councillor Preston?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't disagree with the motion in full. Like Mayor Williams, sorry, Emeritus Mayor, Councillor Williams has mentioned, I think it is a big reason why people do come to live in Hunters Hill, and it makes the suburb beautiful, and it affords locals the opportunity to experience nature all the time. What I find hard to reconcile is to hear from locals their first-hand experiences with the potential dangers of trees that, whilst they are beautiful and whilst they do offer benefits to the community and to broader society, might be the cause of severe incident to a human or property for that matter. And I think I find that difficult to reconcile. Councillor Williams reflects on, using trees in a safe way, i.e. you wouldn't go and sit sorry, I'm paraphrasing, but you wouldn't go and sit under a tree in a gale force wind. Well, unfortunately, where some trees are positioned and the size and height of those trees mean that some locals don't have a choice. And I wouldn't want for something bad to happen just because we're trying to protect and maintain trees. Also, trees with issues. And obviously it would have to comply with or satisfy the criteria for removal or pruning in any case. So I feel confident that the council's procedures around the maintenance of trees and the DA process is stringent enough to be able to recognise where tree removal is required and the replacement of trees is appropriate in that circumstance, and conversely where it is not appropriate, and that mitigators can be put into place by that resident to ensure the safety of that tree whilst it can still stand. So I would like to foreshadow.
Can move an amendment if you like.
Can I move
rather than
just
foreshadowing?
I'd like to propose an amendment, and this is on the fly with my apologies, but just since I've heard from the speakers tonight, that we amend the third recommendation in the report. Sorry, the second recommendation in the report to say that council adopt the draft new significant tree register listings with the exception of the Eucalyptus pilularis at 17 Barons Crescent, the Corymbia maculata at St Mark's Church, and the Cinnamomum camphora at Fig Tree Road. Sorry.
Doing better with
I
Latin
can
than
spell
I
it
was
out,
with
but
names
yeah,
earlier,
so
but
easy enough.
I suppose that's that law training kicking in.
Cinnamomum. Oh, sorry. Yep, Fig Tree Road. And it's not that I don't think these trees are beautiful and that they could have long-lasting life. And in any case, I don't think that this recommendation, by virtue of its passing, in the event that it's passed, would mean that these trees are removed by any means. I just think that I wouldn't want to be a part of the governing body who determined that these trees be afforded extra protections in the event that something bad were to happen. I wouldn't want to be a part of that decision-making process personally, because I think that the risk is real. So that's my.
Thank you. Is the amendment seconded? It is seconded, Councillor Turnous-Sleeman. That's okay. That is an amendment that's been proposed. So we'll now debate the amendment to the original motion. Councillor Preston, would you like to speak further to that?
No.
Do you have any speakers against the motion? Against the amendment? Sorry, Councillor Lane.
Thank you. I have two concerns about the listing, the discussion around the eucalyptus trees being removed, and that is that we have gum trees from the significant tree list, and that is we have gum trees throughout the LGA. In fact, they're an endemic species of Australia. It's one of our wonderful and unique flora, and they do have a tendency to drop branches. So I lived on Madeline Street when a significant branch came down on the corner of Madeline Street, and we had to have emergency services called. If you follow the logic that we put the risk of branch dropping above all other considerations, then there is no protection for any gum trees in any circumstances that might drop branches. And so I think that logical extension for me is problematic, because this is a significant native species, and we're saying that anything that potentially drops a branch wouldn't be suitable. I think the argument changes somewhat when you look at the camphor laurels. These are an environmental pest. They aren't recognised as being something that we desire to be planted at all because of their tendency to spread. And I think, therefore, the onus for the camphor laurels to be listed is much higher, because you have to overcome the fact that they would normally be a pest species in order to say that these are somehow significant. And I find that if we can't substantiate that they were planted for the sesquicentenary, therefore there's really no reason at all to protect those camphor laurels. But for gum trees, I would have a significant concern if we were removing gum trees on the basis of leaf drop. I've had to have significant conversations with neighbours because this is a universal concern of every gum tree wherever occurring. And so for that reason, I would support or I'd foreshadow a motion to remove the 3 camphor laurels on Freak Tree Road from the list, but I don't support the removal of the eucalyptus and the corymbia.
Thank you, councillor Lane. Councillor Priest, and I do have, did you include in that motion the camphor laurel?
Yeah.
As well, yes.
Yeah.
Any speakers for the amendment? Councillor Tannous-Sleeman.
Mayor Miles,
Councillor.
couple of points, just to touch on everything. Again, I've taken everything in consideration, taken the comments about climate emergency and all that stuff. So professionals do get it wrong. So I don't agree with all the professionals. I don't agree with the notion that we've moved into a suburb that had all this existing, infrastructure that's been here for hundreds of years. Well, the suburb's also evolved. We've got a lot more population, we've got a lot more infrastructure, and so we have to evolve as a suburb, first and foremost. In terms of safety just being one criteria, it's got to be the criteria. When you do a risk assessment, it's one of the considerations in determining how to mitigate the risk. And to the earlier point about creating healthy environments, I'm all for healthy environments, but you don't have a healthy environment when you've got families that have come to me and have showed me videos where it is a safety concern for their kids to go out and play. So you can have all the trees out there, but if you don't have kids running around, particularly when they're of significant size and nature, and in some cases, yes, the tree may have been planted in there, but there's been residential dwellings that have been built around it. So, and unfortunately, in those cases, their option is one, to either move out and then pass on that problem to other residents, but it's not solving the issue. And I genuinely believe we have a ticking time bomb if we don't address this, or we're going to continuously start to get a continuous a number of events coming through where people start doing things and take things in their own hands. But my bigger concern is safety must be a mitigating factor in our decision, and I support council's preference to exclude those 3 particular listings on our registrar.
Thank you, councillor Tannous-Sleeman. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? Against the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just don't know where this ends up if we go down this path that a hazard must be addressed at all costs. Later on in this report, in this business paper, we have a report that deals with bushfire hazards and management. If you don't want any risk to community, you would take away all trees that are in our reserves. But we have a process to deal with the risk. The bushfire management risk is done carefully, precisely, and there's a maintenance and management strategy that comes out of it. Likewise with our trees. Our trees, council has gone to a lot of trouble to identify the health, the management requirements of all our public trees. And there's a management program put in place to ensure that risk is minimised, that the health of the tree is maximised, and that the interaction with infrastructure is also maintained and managed. We've heard tonight about one particular tree and one particular residence. And I might add that I heard, if I heard correctly, that there's been 3 applications for its treatment, removal or whatever, which have been assessed by the staff, by council's experts, and determined that it should stay. So to remove it from this list does not change its position in terms of where the professional assessment of that tree stands. So I think the list needs to stay in entirety. I think we need to educate and develop programs to help people manage their trees, as we do in terms of our public trees. I think they play a vital part in our community, our well-being, our lifestyle, sustainability, and our important environment and biodiversity components. So I don't accept these should be removed. I think they've been considered carefully by the professionals. They've also obviously been tested, I heard, 3 times through the approvals process in one case. So I think we maintain the integrity of the report.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Councillor
Can I please
Prieston,
ask a question
you
to
may.
you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps to the Director of Planning, just to use this eucalyptus as a case study. Are you able to let us know the reasons why the 3 applications for its
Councillor, we're getting into specifics of an application that is not live and has been dealt with by the staff. So I would be cautious about going into that territory.
It's decided to be left in its current state when there's evident safety risk.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, in the context of the business paper, that's near impossible for the planning director to answer that, but we can take that on notice.
That's okay.
We didn't bring that
You can just say
information.
that, that's
Yeah,
fine.
thanks.
Am I allowed to speak again? Not to.
You'll have right of reply at the end of debate. Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, you've got a question? You only get one bite of the cherry when you speak, but if we go back into, after dealing with this amendment, once we've dealt with the amendment, you're going to phrase a lot of things as questions now. Once we go back into the debate of the primary motion, you will be able to speak again because you haven't spoken on the primary motion yet. Do you have a question or are you going to wait?
I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Right of reply, councillor, the amendment. Right of reply, councillor Preston.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. I love the trees at Hunters Hill. I participated in most tree planting, broadly advertised programs, including one 15 years ago when I was really young at the goat paddock, the horse paddock, goat paddock. And those trees are now fully grown effectively and beautiful. And Kadiana Vergara and I recently participated in the planting of the trees at Boronia Park with Chris, and that was great. I think everything that the opposing councillors have mentioned, including the onus on locals to maintain existing trees, is true and correct. And I don't think that by not including them on the significant tree register, it means that it's going to be easier by any means for these trees to be removed. I think that all I am concerned with is that where there is a safety risk that potential tree register trees pose, I wouldn't want to make the process more challenging in any way for an applicant to want to mitigate that risk in relation to those trees. So that is where I'm coming from. By no means do I agree with the willy-nilly removal of our tree canopy or the willy-nilly pruning of those trees without due process. I just am concerned with the safety risks. And in the first case, yes, I would like for those risks to be mitigated before a removal is proposed. Perhaps I'm not a professional, I'm not an arborist, but I just am concerned that the process becomes elongated and arduous for risky trees, that's all.
Thank you, councillor. That concludes debate on the amendment. I'll now put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is carried on my casting vote. Councillors, that the amendment becomes the motion. The motion is now live again. Councillor Williams has spoken to the motion. Is there anyone speaking for the motion?
The amendment carried.
That was carried on my casting vote.
It wasn't a casting vote.
It was even.
3-3.
Oh, okay.
And I'm the casting vote as
So the amendment's
chairperson.
carried.
Yes.
Okay.
So the amendment becomes the motion. And we're back into debate of the motion. Councillor Williams has spoken. Anyone speaking against the motion?
Motion of the amendment?
No, so the amendment that we just passed has become the motion. That's what we're debating. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen just so that we know exactly what we're debating. So that is what we are voting on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Preston, just so we're 100% accurate here, that is the wording of your amendment?
Yeah, I'd like for the capitalisations to be consistent, but yes, that is the substance of the motion.
Okay, we can pull that down now.
Thank
We're
you.
back into debate.
Thank you, Councillor
Anyone
Preston.
speaking against the motion? Councillor Lane.
I suppose I'd like to, first I'd like just to start by acknowledging that I think that what Councillor Tanner-Sleeman and Councillor Preston have raised is a valid concern, which is about the difficulty in pruning. I think we're conflating that with the significant tree register. I would think that there are other things that we could do if this is a significant concern. For example, we could ask for a report on the pruning process and whether or not that can be improved in relation to safety and regular maintenance, for example. And that would address the substantive issue without the tree register. I think the importance of the listing in the significant tree register, we've fluffed a little bit because we've heard, oh, look, it doesn't change the DA process at all. I do think there is one change that it makes. And Heather Armstrong, when she gave her submission, gave us that example, which is that when someone goes for the fourth bite of the cherry on the Carimbia, for example, you don't risk that the assessing officer, being a different officer, mistakenly says, oh, actually, sure, go ahead with removing that tree. So it is a piece of evidence that it is a significant tree that an assessing officer for an individual application can look at and point to in order to understand why the onus would be against removal as opposed to pruning. And so for that reason, I think, again, we should, if we have a concern with legitimate pruning of gum trees and limb loss, focus our attention on looking at the pruning process, which I agree with Councillor Tanner-Sleeman, a lot of people complain about, so that we make good easy as opposed to a sort of a band-aid fix on the significant tree register as our solution.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Anyone speaking for the motion?
No question.
Sorry, Councillor Vergara, question?
I haven't seen the balance of I can't recall offhand the balance of the register. But are any trees in the goat paddock or horse paddock, whatever those paddocks are they included in the register?
I very much doubt that the trees within federal land would be listed, but I can defer to the director.
Thank you for the question. So the trees that are on Sydney Harbour Federation Trust land are not included in the register. However, I'd like to add to that the Harbour Trust and Council are looking at doing a comprehensive plan for the combined sites of the horse paddock, Clark's Point Reserve and the goat paddock. And within that, we would do a flora and fauna study, which would include plotting every tree on site and hopefully extending the tree canopy to include the planting of further species on those site areas. Thank you.
And just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, that process will involve community consultation as part of that plan.
Councillors, any speakers for the motion? Councillor Tanner-Sleeman.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Lane. I do agree that we don't want to sort of inflate sort of the issues at hand. So whilst I think the pruning can be looked at, I mean, I'm still in favour in some cases for tree removal, but I do think they pose a significant risk. On the basis of sort of your sort of direction with this, if particularly the three that we've raised as the removal, could we have them removed for further discussion and take them off this listing, get them reviewed in terms of safety concerns, because I'm not comfortable. No one today in this meeting has showed me that they are an expert in any of these areas. My experience is common sense, and common sense to me has to prevail in this situation where we've got people from our community who are highly concerned despite what we might think is professionals given sign off. Again, I said I question that sign off. There is common sense. And for me, common sense with what I've seen today, not only in the 2 submissions raised to me, but what I've heard at large by our community, has to play a significant factor. So I'm in favour of having the significant tree register proceed, but with the exception of these 3 particular
That's the
submissions.
motion.
Correct.
Oh, you're in favour of it.
I'm in favour of it.
Yes, so you're
Very
speaking in
much in
favour.
favour of it.
Councillors, any further speakers against? For?
Sorry, is it? Am I right in
Question,
Yes, the
councillor?
question.
Yes.
Thank you. Am I right in understanding from what Councillor Tanner Sleeman has said that we could propose an amendment to bring back those 3 for further discussion in another session of council?
You could. Given that this is a live document,
Yeah.
it will be reviewed constantly anyway. So I would imagine those trees could be reassessed at that time. If you would like to specifically talk about them,
I think this is a more specific request to review whether or not they pose a significant safety risk at the moment, and then bring them back to the next council.
You could do that. I would suggest that the staff have heard that suggestion, and we can very much facilitate that without a motion of council. But if you'd like to formalise it, then you could.
Well, Mr Mayor,
Yeah.
through you, I have to respectfully disagree. That requires an application through a separate process, and it's not the role of councillors to do that assessment. It's the role of the staff and arborists. And I think you're getting into very dangerous territory if you make a request that councillors are assessing the merits of the safety of a tree.
Fair enough. Councillors, I'm in your hands. Councillor Lane.
If I can suggest an amendment, can I suggest that we ask for a report from council as an amendment on the pruning process, and specifically whether or not, given the discussion tonight, further information can be furnished on the 3 trees that have been removed from the register tonight as a report back to the next council.
As a report to council for all tree prunings.
Yeah, a report on the pruning process for all tree prunings, and specifically on the safety risk of the 3 trees that have been removed from the register in the amendment.
Is this a proposed amendment?
This is a proposed amendment to the original motion. Sorry, to the motion on the floor. The motion was moved by Councillor Williams, and it was seconded by Councillor Bagara. You would have to propose very specific wording, which I'm going to pull up right now, and we can see if the mover and seconder are comfortable including that in the motion.
I believe the seconder may already have better wording in mind. I'm happy to do that.
So, councillors, I'm in your hands. You need to propose an amendment or not propose an amendment. Otherwise, I'm going to move on with debate.
So for it?
No, you can't. Councillor Lane has the call.
That report on the pruning process in relation to safety and regular maintenance be brought back to the next council. In relation to safety and regular maintenance be brought back to the next council meeting. And advice on the 3 trees removed in item 2.
On the safety risk posed by the 3 trees removed in item 2.
Sure. On the safety risk. Thank you.
Very important that the staff get to say something here before you vote.
Yep.
So, is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I know the town planning director wants to say something. Can I just objectively make this comment to councillors before you vote? I want you to think really carefully here about precedent, because if you vote this, then where does that end? So does that mean that hypothetically, if there is a notice of motion that is brought to the next meeting where 3 residents have had previous DAs rejected through removal, pruning processes or whatever, does that mean that we then get a constant flow of those requests? And I just want you to really think about that. And to give you an example, without naming the property or the resident, we have dealt with a very emotive DA application that has been rejected 3 times. The resident bought the property after the original DA was rejected. So they bought the property with full knowledge that a DA to remove the tree had been made. And then 2 subsequent DA applications have been rejected based on very high level expert advice from arborists. And also for us to bring you that report, that comes at significant cost. So every single time we have to bring you back that level of detail, there's probably no change out of $1,800 per tree. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that I am concerned from an operational point of view that this sets a precedent, and it's a costly one. But like I always say, it's your prerogative to vote, but I'm sure the planning director also has a view.
Greg.
Through you, Mayor, and just to add to what the general manager said, my concerns are that the current proposal in front of you is a policy decision, and the proposed recommendation or resolution proposed on the board there is basically an assessment process animal. So we've got a policy decision to make, and you're proposing to look at a review of a tree branch. We have got no application in front of us. And can I remind council, with respect, the council should not be delving into development application processes. Please, let's be careful what we're doing, what we're saying. To help the councillor, are you asking for the council policy to be reviewed for those three addresses? That's one way you can look at it, but not look at the finite detail of trimming or pruning or reviewing an application.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Lane, just before an interaction, I actually share that concern just on the second part of that fourth point. I have no problem with the report on the pruning process. I think that that's prudent. Advice on the safety risk of those specific trees, that gives me concern, because what do you do with that information at that point?
Yeah,
if it's not, because they're all privately owned.
Yeah, so to clarify, to clarify my concern, and maybe it's a wording issue, a significant reason given for voting down the original motion, for foreshadowing the original amendment, was on the basis of the safety risk of those trees. So it does go, in my mind, I'm asking a question about whether or not that risk has been correctly identified. So I'm asking a policy question. I'm not asking for an assessment of the tree from a DA point of view. I'd just like to know whether or not that was a correct assumption around the risk of those trees, because if it's an incorrect assumption, then our position on including them in the register may be different. So maybe the wording's wrong, but the point I'm trying to make here is, given that that's the reason that's been given, can we get some more advice on whether or not that is a significant concern in relation to the trees proposed, so that we can have another look at those trees once we have advice, not the DA itself, just in relation to the listing. So wording wise, I'm in other people's hands as to how we address that. But and again, I feel, Councillor Vergara, you have.
Councillors Williams and Vergara, are you comfortable adding point 4 into the motion? No. Is there a seconder to the amendment? Seconded?
Yep.
Councillor Vergara, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. Yeah, look, I think the only thing that I'd like to say, in addition to what's been previously said, is I agree with all the councillors that we frequently hear issues about the pruning process. I think that the spate of tree poisonings that has been going on in our LGA for a number of months points to the fact that people feel that they can't get satisfaction out of a legitimate process. So I think it's an urgent thing that we allow people to prune dangerous branches so they don't go down another path or feel scared at what should otherwise be a celebration of trees. And for that reason, I think that the report on the pruning process should not only allay the fears of my fellow councillors in relation to gum trees, but hopefully the community at large, that they can do the right thing.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Preston.
I would just like to, I don't know how to do this procedurally, but I'm not happy with the wording.
You can foreshadow an amendment. You can foreshadow an amended amendment.
Yes, please.
Or you could propose a new amendment when we're back in
No, because I think in principle I'm okay with it. I just think the wording is irking me. So I'd like to foreshadow that we change the wording in just item 4 to say that a report on the pruning process in relation to safety and regular maintenance and because it's not, I'm concerned that we delve into operational territory and that the councillors are making an application to assess the validity of the trees. I think that it should say something along the lines of, and advise council laws of the reasons why the most recent application in relation to the above aforementioned Eucalyptus pilularis was rejected. Can I ask the question through you, Mr. Mayor, before I put that motion?
The foreshadow. Yes, you may.
Is that viable from an operational / governance perspective?
Is
that information allowed to be
a brief on the reasons for rejection? Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So that's the foreshadowed. I am assuming I'm about to lose track of process here. First, let me check, are the mover and seconder of the amendment comfortable including that wording in the motion? No, that's not. That is foreshadowed. We're back into debate on the amendment. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we're way off track here. This is a decision around our tree register. To start delving into operational matters and particularly into issues associated with DA approvals, either past or present, I think it's a dangerous position for council to be in. I think that we, even if you go ahead with this, you're looking at only dealing with pruning as a process. What about removal? To me, this should be either a notice of motion or come with a better advice, because we can't move forward on these issues without professional advice. And the professional advice are arborists and our planning staff. And to start involving ourselves with that level of detail, I don't believe that is the appropriate process for council. I think we deal with the register If there's problems about our DA approval, permit approval process, that's a separate issue. And we deal with that through whatever motion or direction to staff. But we don't conflate or involve it into this process, and we particularly don't point to particular locations of trees. To me, it has to be a generic process, a generic outcome of how we deal with it across the municipality, not highlighting and identifying those trees which people have brought to our attention. There might be hundreds of others out there. Are they going to be treated the same? I think the General Manager was alluding to that. Where does this stop? We can't get ourselves involved in individual issues. As councillors, we take advice where appropriate. So I can't support that. I think it's not consistent with the overall thrust of the motion. And I think we are delving into areas which will create other problems within the administration.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers for the motion? For the amendment, sorry. Councillor Bergara.
Not about DAs, it's not about particular trees. We've got a significant tree register, which is proposed. We've had 3 trees removed without any detail, without any professional advice, on the basis that there's safety issues. All the amendment does is say, all right, for now, we've lost the motion, remove those trees, but let us know about if there is a real safety issue. No one here is the expert, as been said. Let's get into the detail if that's the basis for removing them from the register. Where does it stop? With the trees on this register. If you've got a significant tree and it's proposed to be on this register, that's the ambit, that's the scope of what we're looking at. Understand, we've removed trees because of safety reasons without anyone having any view of whether or not that's a real concern. I would have expected that when the Tree IQ people did this analysis, safety was one of the things they considered. I would hardly think that they would put an unsafe tree on your significant tree register. But you're not giving us that information. That's what we're asking for through the amendment. Give us the information. If the trees are unsafe, they're unsafe, they don't go on the register. If they're safe, they should be on the register. That's all the amendment does.
Thank you, Councillor Bergara. Councillor Prieston, question?
No, I'm speaking against.
You want to speak against the motion? Okay. The amendment, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I agree with Councillor Williams. I think that it's delving into operational territory. I think I agree in principle, but I'd like to know, if these trees are safe or not, the ones being proposed to be included on this register. Obviously, I've highlighted my concern with potential safety risks of these trees that drop significant branches. However, the purpose of the motion that is on the floor, not the amendment to the motion, but the motion on the floor is to listen to the community that have come to speak to us today and hear their concerns and hear their frustrations and hear that they're worried about particular items on today's agenda. And that to me is enough. And that's what I'm here to do, is to listen to the residents, listen to the community. I've heard 2 members of the community today talk about the trees that I've proposed be removed from the register in item 2. And on that basis, and not on a basis that I am a safety expert, and not on the basis that I am an arborist or that I purport to know that these trees are certainly unsafe, I do not know that. All I know is that the residents have come to us concerned tonight that this will mean that in the event the tree is deemed by the professionals to be unsafe, they will not be able to do anything about it. And that concerns me. I've heard them, and that is why I proposed the motion which is on the floor. I disagree with the amendment because of those reasons. I think it diverges from the core purpose of the original motion, and I think it delves into dangerous operational territory.
Thank you, Councillor Prieston. Any further discussion? Right of reply? If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. We now go back to the original motion, the amended motion, which is now the motion, the first amendment. Sorry, we can take that off screen now. Councillors, any further discussion? For or against? Councillor Williams, right of reply?
Oh, no, Mr Mayor, I think all the issues have been aired.
Yes, thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We now move back to item 4.2, sorry. And we do have a speaker to that motion. Jim Sanderson. Thank you, Jim. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Look, I'm quite happy to see the recommendation in this report in terms of separating the contentious issue of the excision of heritage conservation areas from Schedule 5 Part B of the LEP. There are also advantages in this area in terms of the arduous task of assessing all of the individual listings of stone walls in the municipality. However, I believe there's a great deal more that should be included in this report. The last opportunity that this community had the opportunity to make submissions to council closed on the 7th of November 2023, a little over 15 months ago. No one has yet seen what is proposed in any of the drafting for a new DCP. And we have heard a great deal of problems to do with the LEB clause 6.9 regarding the landscaped areas. Councillor Williams asked a question with notice at council's last meeting, and unfortunately there was no explanation as to the drafting that was proposed for clause 6.9. The report tells us that we're getting legal advice about that drafting, but no one knows what it is. I would have thought it was better to see whether that there was support for whatever is proposed before we go off and get legal advice on it. At the council meeting back on the 29th of April 2024, I actually tabled my workings that showed some very significant problems with what was then on the table in terms of the proposed changes to landscaped area. I've got those documents with me again. I'm happy to table those again if people would like to have a look at them. It does highlight in one particular example that potentially the landscaped area provisions can do, in some cases, can do no work. What needs to occur in this is planning work, not necessarily legal work. And there need to be many examples worked through, like the one that I have done, so that we understand what the outcome of such provision, whatever it is going to be. We have a very capable community that's very capable of making submissions in these areas, and unfortunately at this point in time they've been shut out of this process for over 15 months. More consultation is required, particularly on clause 6.9. So I'd strongly suggest that until there's more evidence to support the proposals in the plan review, that the process should be put on hold to allow the proposals for the.
Sorry, Jim.
I'm on the last word or so.
Oh, there you go. Good.
To allow the processes of the process of review of the heritage items, the general review, and the DCP to proceed in a coordinated fashion rather than what we've seen so far.
Thank you, Jim. Councillors, any questions?
A question
Councillor Vergara.
through you though, Mr. It's a clarification.
Yes.
The planning proposal goes on public exhibition that's
Yes.
the next stage after we get it through the department.
Correct.
So at that stage, Mr. Sanderson can make the comments and submit his papers, and as can everyone else. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Jim?
Was that a question?
Just to the director. Thank you, Jim. We now have councillors. We now go to item 4.2. There is a recommendation on page 12 of the papers. Councillors, is there a mover?
No,
No.
I'd like to.
There is. Okay. Yes, Councillor Williams. You're proposing a different recommendation to the one that's in the papers.
Yes.
Yes.
that the matter be deferred.
Sorry, councillor Williams, let's just get this up on the big screen. Getting a bit of a workout today. Okay, thank you, councillor Williams. Matter be deferred.
Yep. Until council is advised of the content of the current planning proposal, and that the letter or correspondence from the Department of Planning be provided as a background as to the direction which council needs to take.
You wish to, is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Lane. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As a councillor that's been on this journey the whole way, it's been a very long, tedious and frustrating process for not only the councillors, the staff and the residents as a whole. We're at a process now where a proposal was put to the department. The department has rejected that. There's no clarity as to the direction which, except for splitting it, as to where we need to be going with this document. We have had extensive consultation with community, and regardless of whether the planning proposal gets put back on exhibition, that comprehensive consultation with community needs to be incorporated in our thinking as we go forward. As I say, I'm not aware of the contents of the planning proposal as it currently stands, nor where the direction that the department might wish us to go. There's another underlining issue with this, and it's in the latter part of the report, and that's financial impact assessment. There's no indication to council here of the cost for where we're heading in splitting these two documents and then going back through the process. To me, this has been a very costly, time-consuming process for not only staff, but through a consultant. And if we're going back through the process yet again, that's not even identified here as a cost factor. I think that's very important to be considered in our decision making. In the report, we talk about strengthening the plans. Well, I haven't seen those plans to be able to strengthen. We had an issue at the recent public hearing where there was confusion over whether or not there was floor space ratio associated with it, and several other aspects of where the planning proposal was going to impact on that decision. And I didn't get clarity as to what was proposed. So to me, we need to stop with a new lot of councillors around the table and potentially a new general manager and have a look at what is the best process to move forward to allow the department to accept where we want to go.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Before you jump in, councillor Vergara, I just wanted to clarify that through the director, but the planning proposal hasn't changed since it was lodged in April of last year. So it's the same content that was prepared back then that we were all briefed on and went through council. I don't think that the content's changed unless I'm wrong, director.
Through you, Mayor, that's correct. The clause 6.9 was detailed on pages 18 and 19 of the plan proposal, which was considered and open council on the 29th of April. On the report, it talked about having regard to feedback from the community. Council staff were advised that we were seeking legal advice on the alternative wording, which could seek to clarify the proposed clause to minimise potential confusion and interpretation, whilst ensuring that the landscape area within the municipality can be protected and enhanced by that clause. Any update on the clause of this nature would be included in the plan proposal prior to exhibition to ensure community has the opportunity to review the wording and provide feedback. And just to add that should council resolve to proceed with the preparation and update the plan proposal as recommended in the current report, the amendment to clause 6.9 would be included with the updated plan proposal prior to being reported back to council, prior to council seeking gateway determination, and prior to exhibition. So in summary, the plan proposal has not yet been updated from the version reported to council in April 29. Council staff intend to further review the 6.9 clause and the rest of the plan proposal if council resolve to do so as per the recommendation currently before us tonight. So basically, we're going towards that. We need to hear what the department said about splitting the process of anomalies versus heritage. And once we do that, we continue with our review of the 6.9 clause and all the other clauses, and then we'll bring that back for council and the community to review to get a gateway determination. So we are trying to get there, and it's a long road.
And I can say, as the only other councillor that was here when we started this process in 2019, it was supposed to be a 12-month review of our LEP DCP. So to be 6 years down the road and not
Supposed to be a standard.
Yeah, standard review. Councillor Vergara.
I would just like to foreshadow moving the recommendation in the paper.
Thank you, Councillor
That's all I was
Vergara.
gonna say.
Yes, thank you. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? For the motion? No, that's the motion because it was not a moved and second motion to begin with. So that is the motion under consideration, unless your foreshadowed motion, which is the motion in the paper, gets up.
No, I'll speak against the amendment. We just voted down the amendment to that last motion on the significant tree register because we're getting into the operational details and we're not experts. Seems like this is what you want to do. You want to get into the detail. Councillors want to know the detail. We're the body politic. We set the strategy. The strategy is to review the plans, to strengthen the plans predominantly through removing anomalies, making a document easier to interpret and to reinforce provisions related to the conservation of the character, heritage and the environment of the municipality. That is the strategy. That is the intended purpose. The experts go away and they do that. There's a process and then it comes back for consultation to the community, which we're all a part of and we can make submissions on. So let's not get into the operational side of things and argue the nitty-gritty and the wording of it. That's the intended purpose. We all have to accept it. I think it's the right purpose. Let's move on.
I was just distracted by Ola
Just
taking a tree trunk
getting
out of
very
the
nervous
chambers,
about
which
glass.
is it's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Vergara. Councillors, any speakers for the motion? Councillor Lane.
I think we really need to think about what are we being asked to do and why.
Sure.
We're not being presented with a amended planning proposal to be submitted to the department. In fact, we can't be because some of the material information isn't available, being the legal advice and the redrafting of that clause. We don't know, germane to that previous discussion that we had on 4.6, we don't know why the department had concerns and the extent of those concerns and the extent to which they want to see redrafting of part 2. We don't know the financial impact, and I am very concerned about throwing good money after bad because this is using a strategic planner that has, for the last 6 years, been drafting us a planning proposal that's been rejected. So, why continue? And I think, I think my fellow councillors often use a commercial logic. And if I were a developer and I'd been rejected in a planning application or a planning proposal, and the planning system had significantly changed. For example, within my area, a significant swathe of it had just been upzoned by the department on Friday, and I already knew that there were issues with some of the drafting that I was looking at, that I was having to get legal and planning advice. I don't think I would blithely continue. I would do as most developers and commercial people would do, and I would assess the lay of the land as it was in 2025, not in 2019. And I can't understand why, particularly given the level of change in council that's going on at present, why we're authorising, as best as I understand it in terms of what are we being asked to do, a preparation of a new two planning proposals by an external consultant at cost in order to effectively relitigate what the Department of Planning has already rejected, without seeing the detail, without seeing the letter from the department, without seeing the new clause. And so, and you know, and even if we were approving that, the financial impact assessment hasn't told us the cost that we're approving. I mean, if this was genuinely no current financial impact on council's adopted budget, what are we approving? Council has the money and has the means to propose planning proposals to bring to us at the appropriate moment. So why are we approving this? And that is a genuine question, actually, that I'd like to follow up with the through you, the Mayor, the Director of Planning. What does this do that you couldn't do as part of your normal daily, day-to-day activity?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I will throw to the Director, but let's talk about a couple of points of clarity first, Councillor Lane. So first of all, I'd like you to respectfully withdraw the comment in regards to the current strategic planner, because it's not the work of the current strategic planner since 2019. And that's a bit of a sly, in my opinion, on his professionalism. Hasn't been with council since 2019. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. In regards to the financial impact, I will not be divulging the contractual arrangement with Mr. Metcalfe. Well, Mr. Metcalfe is budgeted to work for this council. And in addition to that, we have budget for legal advice. So there's no extra expense. So we're doing it in-house. So, but I would respectfully ask that we've inferred here that Mr. Metcalfe has done a bad job since 2019. Mr. Metcalfe has not been with council since 2019. And also, with respect, the council have had years to deal with this, years, and has failed to do so. We need to get on with it. Over to you, Director.
Just to really keep it simple, if you review page 16, it really defines what we are being asked by the department in their response following our discussions and meetings to get this plan proposal moving and resolved. The department advised us that the plan proposal would not proceed to assessment, suggesting that the plan proposal should be simplified with a clear statement setting out the proposed amendments to the LEP and the intent without including extracts from drafting changes. So all these drafting changes, the scoping report that came to council came from the community. So we put all that into that, and the department's going, hey, too detailed, too much work, too much information. We've got to keep it simple. So they said, and then we said, how do we go forward? And they said they sign off on it. We've got nothing. They said, split the anomalies with the heritage. Let's deal with those first. It's been going for a while, and then we come back to the heritage. That's the simple answer to that. If you look at the recommendation, page 12, that's all we're asking for tonight. Can I just say about staffing? He's a full-time staff member like myself, and we do things in accordance with the processes imposed by the Department of Planning. Our hands are tied. They're the authority. So we're trying to get this through. So as I said before, the intent for tonight is to move it along, to split it into two parts, and then continue with them coming back with the anomalies to say, these are correct, we're going to do it. Then we go on a gateway and exhibit it for people to make comment. That's where we are. That's what we're doing.
And just through you, Mr. Mayor, just for Councillor Lane's benefit, prior to your election to council, hand on heart, our interaction with the community in the consultation phase, as alluded to by Councillor Williams, was extensive, including a town hall meeting and, for example, specific meetings with stakeholders, included the Hunters Hill Trust, the former solicitor of council, to get feedback about things that need to be inserted to make sure that our case is more stronger if we have to go to litigation, et cetera, et cetera. That was obviously before your time. But just want to repeat again, there's no external consultants involved here at additional cost to council. This is being done in-house, which is budgeted through a staffing process and legal advice that we get.
Just to add to that through you, Mayor, if you go through the beginning of
Sorry,
this.
are we still answering my question at this point?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Do you remember what my question was? I don't.
I'm answering it.
What are we doing was my question.
Your question was what are we doing with this proposal? Why is it taking so long?
No, not why it's taking so long. Why, if it's a proposal from 2019 that's been rejected by council, we haven't seen their reasons, we haven't seen the legal.
It's not been
advice.
rejected by council.
Are we
Councillor
still?
Lane. Councillor
Sorry,
Lane, it has not been rejected by council.
It hasn't been rejected by DPI. It's been
They've
suggested.
requested amendments. We went through this at a briefing and you had the opportunity to clarify these questions.
No,
then.
resubmitting a planning proposal is not amendments. We have withdrawn, or they have not proceeded with Gateway. That is the planning proposal is dormant, dead in the water. I don't know how you want to put it. It's not proceeding, and so we're asking to prepare 2 new planning proposals.
The department is asking us to prepare
That's
two.
right.
two
The
new
department
planning
is asking us to prepare 2 new planning processes.
which we've already done. So it's the process of splitting the two into one and submitting them. I'm not quite sure what the crux of your question is.
So
We're not starting again.
again, in the gloss that you provided, they asked for simplifying of one of those 2 planning proposals, but we don't actually know what's meant by that. So what are you asking us to do? To effectively resubmit the current planning application as 2 planning applications, notwithstanding that there is a rejection letter we haven't seen and legal advice that hasn't been procured, and the fact that it is now 6 years after the original review and the world has changed, but we're still going to go ahead with those. Is that what you're asking for, to just prepare the PPs and just keep trucking on?
Can I answer that, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry, I did want to say I withdraw the comment about Mr.
Thank you.
Metcalf because he
I
wasn't
appreciate
here in
that.
2019.
I appreciate that.
I think it's interesting that
Councillor Lane, I would suggest that you stop right there with your commentary. General Manager.
Well, just to go to the heart of your question, Councillor Lane, what are you being asked to vote on?
Yeah.
You're being asked to vote on the wording of the recommendation, which is the feedback from the department. It's that simple.
So to split the current planning proposal into 2 proposals, and
Which was a request of the department.
So just to be clear, Mr. Councillor Lane, just to be crystal clear, this is not a proposal from the staff. This is what we're being asked to do by the department.
and I suppose I just ask why we haven't been finished with the letter from the department.
Director.
We can get it's probably an email or we can get minutes of the meeting. Well, I can get that for you.
They would have given you a formal letter if they've rejected a planning gateway process.
We can get that information.
Have they, sorry, just to clarify, have they rejected the planning proposal? No, they haven't. There you go. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillors, any further discussion on the motion from Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Lane? If not, right of reply, Councillor Williams? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. The foreshadowed motion now becomes the motion. Councillor Vergara, do you wish to speak to the motion? No. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Prieston?
Thank you. I'll just make a really quick remark. I think there's a lot of issues have been covered in relation to this topic over many years, many months, many days, and during this meeting. I just want to actually thank Steve and Kieran and the rest of the staff for all their work on this. I know it's an incredibly arduous process, and there's obviously been a lot of back and forth with various stakeholders, including the community, including the department, and including councillors. So I thank you for your work to date, and I hope that we can, this can kind of really kickstart due process and we can get this review done and dusted in the most timely manner as possible. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you, councillor Preston. Any further discussion? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I now move to item 4.3, Boronia LATM update. There is a motion on the floor. Is it moved? Moved. Councillor Preston, seconded.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Seconded. No one? I'll second it for the purposes of debate. Councillor Preston.
Look, I think we've had extensive briefing on the issues at hand in relation to the Boronia LATM. We've had professional consultants come in to present to us 3 different options. We've had Sam doing due diligence on those options and explaining to us why each has merits and which ones don't. I don't think personally that any are quite perfect. However, I have faith that the community will be able to have their say during the 28-day community consultation period. I am okay with endorsing option C for the purposes of, just having a stance as council, but I'm aware that that could change. So I guess I'm in favour of putting the government grant into developing safety measures for our community in relation to Boronia Park, and I'd like to see what the community has to say about the 3 options.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers? Councillor Vergara?
Right, for shadow and or propose an amendment for the
Mover and the seconder. You may.
and I'd probably like the director for, not remember what it is, Ms. Goodman, to comment on this. Just in number point 3, that council undertake community consultation.
Sorry, councillor, let me just pull it up on the screen. It's getting a real workout tonight.
It's a community.
Oh, cool. Good fun.
Number point 3, that council undertake community consultation after consultation, including a community meeting. The rationale for the amendment is when we attended, councillor Williams, councillor Sanderson.
Sorry, can I, before you speak to it, can I just ask, is the mover comfortable adding that to the recommendation? Yes? Yep. Comes the amendment, but you may speak to it.
Just quickly, when we attended that street meeting on site, you had lots of different views from the directly impacted people. And I just think it'll be useful for them all to hear each other rather than to get submissions. And it's entirely possible that at the end of the day, nothing works and we do nothing. With speaking more broadly to the motion, 4.3 and 4.4, in my view, are solutions with money looking for problems to solve. But,
Thank you, councillor. The motion is amended. We're now back into debate. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I agree that it's important that we move forward with a solution to the traffic problems in that locality, and it's only going to exacerbate with the government's announcement on Friday, and also with the potential redevelopment of Montefiore. The problem is just going to be compounded. I was at that meeting with the community, and my ears heard the community resoundingly reject slow points. They gave us a solution, which was speed humps. Now we're going back to the same community that made it very clear to us with a different, with the problem that created the backlash last time, which is slow points. Now, okay, they might be a bit different to last time, but in this process, we're not acknowledging the concerns that were raised last time. And to me, it's important that we move forward not on a new slate, but taking into account the position which the community has told us about in the past. Also, I do have concerns about costings. I know the report does indicate that we have enough money to do all these things. But to go to the community with a grand plan to raise expectations, because you can only implement this if you implement the whole thing as a whole. To do it in a piecemeal way, we'll just put residents against residents. You'll then force problems from one location to another. So it has to be a total comprehensive outcome. And to me, considering some of the costings that we've heard about other traffic facilities in the municipality, I think they come up later on, the amount of money we have available is not going to allow us to put in significant and state-of-the-art traffic control measures to this extent. I might be wrong, but I haven't seen costings to that effect. So twofold. One, the community's already had its say on one aspect of this. We're not acknowledging that here, and I think we should be building that into the process. And if they reject speed humps, then we go to something else. But they've already said they want speed humps, so why can't we do that? And secondly, without seeing some of the costings, to me, I think we are setting ourselves up to build expectations that we can't realise.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Prieston.
Can I ask two questions, please, through you, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
Perhaps to Sam, not sure. Can I just be clear? The next steps outlined on page 21 of the report say that during the consultation process, while council will, and if this motion is upheld, endorse option C, at that meeting will be discussed alternative options like refuge island with no continuous footpath, for example, whatever. So option C could change, even if the community said, like, we want something like that.
That's the purpose of the consultation.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And I can't remember my other question. Sorry, but I would like to maybe propose an amendment.
You're the mover of the motion. The only thing that makes that will get in the way of that is me not accepting it.
Oh, okay. Well,
So make it good.
It would be controversial. No, I don't know.
I like controversial.
I just wonder if we might be able to say that council endorse the proposed recommended option C without the quiet way.
Councillor, I'm not going to accept that, and I'll tell you why. Because I think all the options being on the table, this will very likely, very significantly change in the as a result of the public consultation. So
which is why I'm in favour of the motion in general. So perhaps I don't know if I'm necessarily in favour of this, but to resolve some issues, we could potentially just not endorse an option.
Oh, sorry. I've just been told by the general manager that the director would like to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want a point of clarity. The public consultation that we will undertake, we very much listened to the community when they spoke, and it will look at options for that. So it will have a recommended option, but it will look at alternative options that may or may not, but it will also go into educating the community on what a slow point is, what a quiet way is, what a raised footpath, a continuous footpath is, and the pros and cons of those. So there'll be a fact sheet, there'll be a lot of information so that the community can understand what they're signing up to. Whereas I think the lesson learned from the previous LATM was that the little triangular saying quite slow points no one understood what that meant until we actually put them on the road. So we have to absolutely learn the lessons of the past, and I do agree with a community meeting. I think we want to hear from them. We want to be able to put this in, but we don't want to have to dig it up again. because that is never going to happen again.
Been there, done that.
Can I ask a question to the director? Through
Yes.
you, Mr. Mayor? Would it be less prudent to not endorse an option in the context of council, or would you think that it would have the same gravitas going to the community as just 3 options? Like, what is the, I guess, rationale for endorsing one of the 3? Just asking.
In my opinion, through you, Mr. Mayor, the option that we've endorsed is through careful consideration of how that would perform in real life based on the subject matter expertise. It gives us a baseline to look at rather than throwing all these options at them. They see it, see an option, see the recommendation and see the alternative. You could do it the other way, but in my opinion, the way having a recommended option makes them understand that this the one that we believe is going to work.
And as we said, it will be significantly amended. And that's the purpose of the public consultation. That's what we want. We want the feedback so that we can amend it.
And at the end of the day, if the community said, no, we don't like any of them and we don't want anything,
Get back the money.
but this will all come back to council.
Yes. Yeah.
Or we lose that funding.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, we would.
obviously, if we determine that the community is not in favour of any traffic calming measures at all, then obviously we don't need the funds for that purpose and we'd have to give the money back.
Yep. Councillors, any further discussion, Councillor Lane? Question?
Yes, actually. If I could ask a question to the Director of Operations through you. Infrastructure, sorry. I note in the report that you say that transport in principle endorsed option B, given there were no road closures. Can I infer the opposite, which is that they don't support option A because it has road closures?
That's correct.
Okay, so there is a risk if we went with option A and the community decided it, that we would nevertheless not be able to proceed, which I think is a significant reason to endorse an option that doesn't likely clash. Yeah. And I do happen to note that you've actually flagged looking at speed humps instead of slow points in the detail of the report. So
That's correct.
I feel we may not need to do any amendments for the concerns to be addressed.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion?
Can I just
Councillor Williams?
ask a question?
Question?
In relation to the word endorsed, would it be better to use the word preferred?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy with that too. A mover and seconder comfortable. So we've turned endorsed into preferred. Councillors, any further discussion on this item? Right of reply, Councillor Preston? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.4, bike plan route HH1 review. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Councillor Preston?
Can I move the recommendation in the report with an amendment?
Yes, you can.
Right. I would like to add a 0.4.
Yeah, well, sorry.
The recommendation.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, on page 23.
Yep. Yes, 0.4.
That council approve the proposal in relation to site 1 and site 15
Only.
respectively, and have all other site items return to councillors at a briefing another day, later, I don't know.
Do you want to pull that up on the screen? So essentially you're wanting to endorse
Site 1.
site 1 and 15, which is the one's funded and one is eligible for funding, and the rest come back for review.
Yes, could you read it in full? But
Sorry, councillor Vergara.
I provided council officers with a proposed amended recommendation.
Yep.
I think it addresses councillor Prieston's. Could we pull that up and ask councillor Prieston if she would
Sorry.
that as the
Or you,
I'm just reading it.
if you withdraw councillor Preston, maybe you can move that motion. Councillor Vergara, if you've got the wording with you.
I'm just reading it.
Have we got that?
Motion?
Motion, sorry.
Yeah, except there's a typo at number 4. Otherwise, I accept.
So that's moved, and are you seconding councillor Vergara?
Yeah.
Yes, can you read the motion, please, councillor Preston, so that
So that the concept plans for sites 1 and 15 be adopted for the purposes of proceeding to detailed design and community consultation with the aim of improving the overall safety. That says safety, so safety.
it's right on the screen.
For
Yep.
walking and cycling along the HH1 route. That detailed designs be prepared for sites 1 and 15 and community consultation on the detailed designs be undertaken as a priority. That council reconsider the concept designs for the remaining sites, including without limitation to 3 things. 1, determine the need for and utility of traffic devices at each of the identified sites. 2, explore alternative sites such as the intersection at the Avenue, Mount Street and Alexandra Street. And 3, explore alternative options to improve safety for walking and cycling along the HH1 route. And 4, that community consultation on the concept designs for the remaining sites be undertaken prior to proceeding to detailed designs. And community's missing a T in mine. Right.
That's been moved and seconded. That's the motion on the floor. I have a question. We're not going out to public consultation with this under this motion on all the designs until council's reviewed them and has not endorsed them. But I'm just conscious putting those out to community consultation, which include a lot of speed devices and things down the main road, arterial road.
I'll change 4 potentially to say something like, should council consider, or I don't know, it's what you're trying to say, right, is, can I just ask a question?
It's moved and seconded, so you have to propose an amendment to your seconder. 1.
consultation on the lines referred to in 1.3 and proceeded with.
Yeah, only like what I'm trying to say is if the council deems them to be.
Is that captured in there?
Concept designs resulting from numbered 0.3.
Resulting from
the process undertaken in 0.3 above.
Okay. That's fine. Councillors, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, okay. I worry that some of the items in this report, despite the fact it's a good report and a worthwhile report, are kind of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I don't know that some of the site proposals adequately address the issues, and vice versa. There are some sites where I don't necessarily see there to be community benefit in actually spending the money and implementing the measures. So I guess I'm happy with the in principle purpose of the bike plan route and the review that we've now undertaken on all of these streets to ensure that there's safety and there's amenity and all of those things. And I think the ultimate goal is a really good one. I just think that there's merit in sites 1 and sites 1 and 15 more than the others at this point in time.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone speaking against the motion?
Can I propose an amendment?
You may.
I agree with everything that's in there, and I share those concerns, as you would know from previous correspondence. And I was also suggesting a very similar amendment. The only comment that I would make is that site 3, which is the 80 Street crossing, has been the subject of a review by council for quite a while. So that was brought to the Movement and Transport Advisory Committee in the last council, and a reasonable amount of work was done. And I understand that it's been included in this package subsequent to that previous investigation. So I would propose as an amendment that we have sites 1, 3 and 15, because I think the Hunters Hill or Garibaldi village is a significant area and there's a known speed concern and difficulty crossing the road at that point. And without addressing that, given the vast distance between sites 1 and 15, we won't be solving a key issue on the corridor.
That's a proposed amendment. Can I first check whether or not the mover and seconder are comfortable with that being included? No. Is there a seconder? Yes. Councillor Williams, that is now the amendment being debated. Councillor.
So, can I just ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor, Council?
Yes, you may.
Is it just to include, in addition to sites 1 and 15, site 3 proposal?
Yes, at 80 Street.
So is that the, is it going, like, is the proposal for that one the?
I can tell you the page, councillor.
Oh, I see. Yes, just the Wombat crossing in site 3, not the
Median Island.
That's right. So if we need to clarify, yes, the crossing in site 3.
Which can be dealt with in detailed design, I'd suggest.
Thanks.
Yep.
So we're aware of what we're debating?
Sorry, when you say it can be dealt with in detailed design,
Yes.
as in?
Because the second point is to prepare the details, be prepared for sites and to detailed design and public consultation.
When you say dealt with though, as in it will be redrawn to show hypothetically just the
correct
crossing. Okay.
Councillors, Councillor Vergara.
I just want to talk against the amendment.
Yeah, not yet. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
I'll use my right of reply.
Yes. Yes, you may.
I'm not against the crossing, but I think given there are 19 proposed devices and next to 3, you've got 1 at 2 and you've got that Alexandra Street curve, I think it needs to be done holistically. I don't think you just put a crossing there. Yeah, we're talking about 1 and 15. There's things there, they're not really going to affect anything. They'll happen. But the Addy Street 1, 3, that whole section needs to be looked at really holistically. And then my concern is just plonking something there now at 3 would not allow us to have that holistic assessment of from the post office. You know, we're going to put a crossing at the post office and then run it at Addy Street. Need to look at those together. Maybe there's one in the middle. I don't know. But my point is you need to look at that whole section from post office to ferry really consistently and holistically and not make a decision to jump in now and do something without that view.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers for the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a lot of logic in providing a safe crossing at one of our commercial areas. A lot of people have to try and access across that. Having the pedestrian crossing where it's proposed in site 3 does not preclude still doing other works around the corner, but it does give immediate relief and opportunity to residents and customers and people who wish to use that commercial area. It's no different to the Woolwich circumstance for, I think it's 15. And obviously the school is another. So in terms of priorities, I think those commercial areas and the residents and the community that access them deserve a safe crossing. And I don't believe it has any impact at all on future plans to do further island work. I would find it rather odd or extreme to have a pedestrian crossing at site 2, which is the post office, and again at site 3. I think site 3 was the site for it. There'd be no conflict or whatever. I don't understand site 2, but site 3 is a commercial area where people do cross. There's restaurants and cafes. stalls. So to me, I think there's a lot of merit in including 3 in consideration.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any speakers against the motion? Or, sorry, the amendment? Councillor
Yes,
Beeston.
sorry, councillor Lane, because I don't disagree that something needs to be done at that corner. I actually prefer the proposed measure at site 4 though. So my problem is I don't want the one at site, in theory, this is all very hypothetical obviously because there hasn't been any concept drawings. In theory, I prefer the option for site 4, which I think addresses people crossing at that corner over site 3. But if we hypothetically had community consultation and the community did want the crossing at site 3, then we've already done that, and I don't think that we need both in theory. So I would consider including site 4 proposal in the motion, but unfortunately not site 3 because I'm worried actually about traffic issues there with the Hunters Hill Public School crossing just up nearby, whereas I think a refuge is potentially less of an issue and also addresses some of the safety concerns. So that's my view anyway, without hearing what the community has to say, obviously.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Lane, right of reply. Sorry, amendment. Councillor Lane.
As I said previously, the 80 Street crossing predates this work. It is a freestanding proposal. It's not contingent on any other location. And I know that there's always a bit of a query about when we're speaking with a professional opinion hat rather than as a councillor hat. But this happens to be an area where I have professional opinion, and I can, I think, counsel you that, if that's the wrong word, advise you that the crossing in site 4 is actually a safety hazard. And had we, or in the process of further consultation with the Department for Transport, if that is proposed on its own, they will have significant concerns about a pedestrian refuge on a corner in the manner that's proposed. And they also have something called a pedestrian crossing guideline, which was published last year, which talks about on a street like this, the crossings should be about 200 metres apart. And we have a very long council area, and therefore I have marked up, for the sake of the Director of Infrastructure, thank you, all of the distances between the crossings to point out that in some areas they go in excess of 500 metres, and that would be the case for Hunters Hill Public School to 80 Street. So while we may perceive that because of a lack of crossings at the moment that, you know, 2 is crazy, in actual fact, when our council is the equivalent of going from Westminster Cathedral to the City of London, the fact that we're only proposing 2 crossings at the 2 far ends is massively undercooking what needs to be done. And that's not to say we couldn't do a better job, and therefore I agree with the bulk of your suggestion to put this back for further design. But in relation to 80 Street, given its history and the known safety issues, I don't see why excluding it from a potentially funded program is a move that reflects our concern for the community safety that was so eloquently put in relation to the tree issue.
Thank you, councillor Lane. I will just let the director respond to a couple of comments during the debate.
Just a point of clarification, these concept plans, there's a lot of them, and I get it. What we have got, get active funding that will enable us to do 4, and we've got a separate grant that will enable us to do another. When looking at these, the 3, 4 and 5 are in very close proximity to each other. What I'm proposing to you is that the detailed design is of that entire strip, and that we look at the traffic measures in that vicinity and do a detailed design of all of it. So that goes to your point, Councillor Vergara, where we're being more holistic about how we're looking at it. one of the big concerns and one of the biggest concern raised through the community consultation of the bike plan was speeding on Alexandra Street and Woolwich Road and Ferry Street. And traffic calming devices were suggested by the community. So that's why I think we've gone a little bit crazy with the traffic calming measures. And I do think that those concepts do need a lot more review and refinement. But I really feel that those 1, 5, 3, 4, 1, 15, 3, 4 and 5, if we nailed those detailed design, doesn't mean we're going to build it. It just means that we'll know, and we've got the funding for it anyway. So that's what I'm proposing.
It's just before, so that I'm very clear, that those concepts are funded, and we're having another tranche of funding.
That's for the other tranche of funding is for site 1.
Yes.
And that's outside of Hunters Hill Primary School, and that is separate.
Yep.
So this, and that's for design and construct.
Okay.
This is just for detailed design, and because that Garibaldi Place is an area of commercial activity, it's going to increase with the new cafe that's going to be built. I really do feel that we have an opportunity to be able to get ourselves grant ready for funding for traffic calming in that area.
Just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, it's an observation, it's not a subject matter expert. I always ask myself the question of, if there was an incident, what would we do? And the reality is the increase in the volume of people running the gauntlet from the Dawn Bakery at the moment, across the road, looking this way at Alexander Street. And as the directors point out, it's going to get more foot traffic when that next cafe opens. So as Councillor Williams alluded to, in that commercial area, I actually believe that we've got a responsibility to take a duty of care there.
Get rid of your tree register. Maybe should.
Julie, sorry, Councillor Prieston, sorry.
I just want to ask another question because I don't like the idea of the pedestrian crossing there necessarily, like subject to what the community thinks and expert advice. I wonder if there's an opportunity. Obviously there is, but like I just don't want to endorse.
Councillor, I think, yeah, so what the director said, so Councillor, please. What the director has just said is that they are going to look at those 3, holistically, look at those 3 different calming devices.
But they're not as a
Together.
no, but not in the current motions form.
Yeah, so
We can change.
through
Yes.
I know,
through you,
but
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask a question of you, if I were to withdraw my motion and propose a new motion,
or sorry, just all you'd need to do is amend your amendment, and
right.
Councillor Williams would have to accept the proposed amendment to your amendment. Then you're asking whether that would satisfy Councillor Prieston's issues.
Well, you don't know what my issues are because I haven't asked my question
Then
yet.
you can ask your question.
Thanks. So is there an opportunity to interrogate an alternative, say at 80 Street, for example, a refuge? Even if we were to endorse this motion, if you know what I mean.
We could potentially, absolutely. I mean, I know that Councillor Lane has given me some really good feedback here, and we'll take the feedback, and you've got these, we'll take feedback and take it away and get the survey done, get it really detailed designed and ready based on conversations and suggestions and subject matter expertise.
And to be clear, your professional opinion, Sam, is to include 3, 4 and 5 as a package in addition to 1 and 15.
That's right. I would, in fact, I think in hindsight, the concept should have been done together.
Yes.
Because it really is.
That's my
something that
problem
should be
right
considered
now.
together.
Yes.
And yeah.
Not detailed.
Yeah. The detailed design will do that, and when prior to going out to the consultation, we'll take you through that.
But it still would have to proceed to community consultation, as in so I guess in theory, is it possible for detailed designs to be completed for sites 1 and 15 and proceeding to community consultation per this motion, if that's what was to pass. And then in relation to sites 3, 4 and 5 as a separate issue, could councillors potentially ask to see like a concept brought back to council? I know it's more work and I wouldn't wish that upon you for no reason, but more of a conceptual design around those 3 sites as a whole before council endorses that to go to community consultation.
The only thing that concerns me is the grant funding and the timing for it to run out. But before they do a detailed design, the challenge with detailed design is they have to do all the due diligence, and that's where the cost is.
And the grant funding covers the detailed design. Yeah,
it covers that.
But we can do the detailed design and then not have it go to community consultation, and then have councillors endorse that first before it proceeds to, or is that not?
Well, look, before they come up with the detailed design, they obviously have to do the due diligence, but they also have to have a concept in their head. So let's just say I'll have a talk to the consultants, and we'll come back with a concept of that area at a briefing.
Councillors, are we all aware, Councillor Lane, are you, just so that for my own mental acuity, proposing the inclusion, are you amending your amendments to include items 4, 5 and
3,
4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5? Councillor Williams, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Councillors, that does conclude the debate on the amendment. I'll put the amendment with the inclusion of 3, 4 and 5. All those in favour?
So can we send?
Have a look at it. It's all there.
Check the wording.
So 3, 1, 3, 4.
3, 4, 5.
4, 5 and 15. Is that correct?
Yeah.
1 and 2.
And then
3, 4 and 5.
sorry, can I just assist you? So it's fine in the first one. If you could delete 3 from we've just added it, and then after 15, put comma and 3, 4 and 5
Together or something.
as a package.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams, are you comfortable with?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Can we just give me 1 second to read?
So just through you, Mr. Mayor, because
Yes.
I'm always conscious of all this. Councillors, is that wording where you've landed?
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to read.
Take it. Yeah, take the time.
Okay. I just don't like that we're adopted.
Councillor, have you read?
Yep.
Yes, okay. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. That becomes the motion. That motion is now the motion. Is there any further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Now move to item 4.5, electric vehicle charging proposal at 3A Cow Street, Gladesville. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion? If not, Councillor Preston, question?
Good stuff. I feel like this is overdue. It's good for the environment. It matches our sustainability goals. Was there someone speaking on this? No.
No.
The license agreement, I know that's commercial in confidence. Will councillors have an opportunity to talk about that? Yeah, I've got it.
So
Is that in closed session or something?
So just through the mayor. So this was a bit tricky, technical,
Yeah.
from a procedural point of view. I could have put that document itself as a closed session paper. So I'll be guided by the mayor, but my advice would be if you want to discuss this particular paper, you will need to go into closed session. It's commercially confidence. So
your councillors have been provided that those terms, but if you want to get into the nitty gritty, we'll have to close council.
Like, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
think that was
Okay,
my
I need a
fault.
motion to move
There you
into
go.
I'll
into closed
move
session.
that motion.
Moved, seconded, councillor Vergara. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.